The Verdict, a Sidebar production, hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. As a part of its traditional and continuing commitment to public and community service, Crow & Dunlevy sponsors The Verdict. Also sponsored by Delta Dental, Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, and C.H. Guernsey & Company. Each week on The Verdict, we present an objective discussion of contemporary and legal issues, topical issues that will affect Oklahomans in their daily lives. The Verdict, a Sidebar production.
And welcome back to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett. I am joined as always by one of Oklahoma's top legal experts, Kent Myers. And Kent, today we welcome back a guest from last week.
Yes, we're very pleased to have Jim Bednar, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System, joining us again for the second in our series of criminal law and the poor. We're going to be talking about a few different things. We're going to be talking about just exactly what his lawyers do and are able to do and why constitutionally they are required to do it. Some of our citizens take a very dim view of using tax dollars, their tax dollars, to pay lawyers to represent people who have supposedly committed crimes, and they have a hard time understanding why that ought to be required, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then in this year of budget crunch with the state of Oklahoma being short on money, as are most states, we're going to talk about how that's affecting Jim's office and how that may affect the rights of the poor defendant as well.
Well, let's take a break and then we'll get to it. Jim Bednar is our guest today. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and we'll be right back.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
The Verdict is pleased to have as a sponsor C.H. Guernsey & Company, providing architectural and engineering services to clients throughout the U.S. and around the world.
And Blankenship is stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leading at 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go for it. Wiggins in to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
All children deserve a life of hope and love. But sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all of the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. Oklahoma Lawyers for Children has over 350 of the best attorneys and volunteers in Oklahoma County who donate their time and services to represent children. For more information, call 405-23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers is going to introduce our guests.
We are very pleased to have returning to The Verdict for a second visit, Jim Bednar. Jim, thanks for coming back. Jim is the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System and may be the most credentialed and lettered state employee we have, with a BS, an MS, a PhD, and a JD, at least up to now. Who knows what may come in the future.
I'm through.
You're through, all right. But with all those degrees, he's been a public school teacher as well as a college professor. He was chief legal counsel for the state multi-county grand jury when he was in the Attorney General's office. And he's been the deputy treasurer of the state of Oklahoma. But now, and for the recent 5 years, he's been the executive director of the bunch of lawyers that are appointed to represent people who don't have lawyers themselves, can't afford them. Jim, welcome back on The Verdict.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Well, Jim, Hollywood loves the role that you play and the people that you work with. Back to Dragnet, where, you know, you have the right to remain silent. If you give up the right to remain silent, et cetera, et cetera. To Hawaii Five-0 and Bookham Dano. And today it seems like DAs are becoming, and judges are becoming all the rage on television. How accurate is the portrayal that you see on these television shows to the way it really is?
Well, I don't even recognize anything that I do that I see on television, and it's kind of it's misfortunate that because on television the defense guy is kind of a slick lawyer trying to get a guilty guy off on technicalities, and that just really doesn't happen very often, if ever, on a day-to-day basis. What basically happens is that we try to get a correct assessment of what's occurred, and then if in fact our client has violated a law, what is the appropriate charge and appropriate sentence in the case.
And you don't always get it solved in an hour, do you?
You sure don't. It's just a lot of nitty-gritty hard work.
Let me ask you something that we talked about at the beginning of this show, and that is some of our viewers might ask, why should the state of Oklahoma's tax dollars be used to provide a defense to somebody who may ultimately be found to have committed a very heinous crime against the citizens? Why should they have that kind of protection?
Well, Ken, I'm glad you asked that question. There are three basic reasons for that, and they're all constitutionally mandated. Excuse me.
Sure.
40 years ago, the United States Supreme Court in Gideon versus Wainwright held that if you are going to deny a man his liberty and or his life, that he must be represented by counsel. And now, over the last 40 years, that's evolved. It used to be if a lawyer had vital signs that was good enough to pass the test. Today, the standard is that he must render effective assistance of counsel, and there's a lot of cases that pretty well describe what that is. So, under that, we are constitutionally mandated. If we're going to put a man's liberty at risk here, we've got to provide him with a lawyer. Secondly, in Ake versus Oklahoma, and I was the district judge in that case, that was a horrible shooting of the Douglas family, Ake put on an insanity defense and wanted a private psychiatrist. At the time, I couldn't pay for that out of the court fund. There was no expressed authorization to do so, and I had to deny that motion. I would have liked to have granted it, honestly, because I felt like in order to sustain this thing on appeal that we probably ought to do that, but I wasn't authorized by law to do that. Went to the United States Supreme Court, and they basically said that the defendant's entitled to the wherewithal to put on a constitutionally adequate defense. In other words, if his sanity's at an issue here, and that's his defense, he's got to be given the tools, in this case a psychiatrist that represents on his side, that to push this claim of insanity. And so we've got that requirement, that we have to provide, when warranted, whatever's required to put on a constitutionally adequate defense.
Well, is it based on what the prosecution spends? In other words, if you see that the prosecution is spending a certain amount of money, then does the defendant offer almost that same expense? Is it monetary?
We probably don't get the same expense, but it's really up to the defense attorney to determine what he needs in order to counter the prosecution's case or to modify it. In other words, it isn't that what the prosecution is doing is wrong or incorrect, but it may be askew a little bit. We have to pull it back to show that there's at least some mitigating circumstances here that does not warrant, say, the death penalty or being charged with this charge or whatever, or it was self-defense, it wasn't murder.
Let me ask you this. I, from time to time, see and hear about experts who are able to opine about the unreliability of eyewitnesses and how often those eyewitness identifications turn out to be incorrect. Are you ever able to use those kinds of experts?
Well, we had, I've got 4 real good examples since I've been there. We had Ron Williamson, who was within 5 days of being executed on an eyewitness testimony of a prosecutrix who had been raped, and we were able to show by DNA testing that he was not the man, and we were able to identify who the man was. Or at least our sample, they used our sample to identify who the real rapist was. We've had other people who have served, Jeffrey Pierce, and had served 15 years for rape, identified by the prosecutrix. We used DNA to show that he was not the man. He was released after 15 years. We've had a couple of others like that where people have done 15, 16 years, and they weren't the perpetrator. Now, we didn't have that back then, but because we are getting some funding made available, we're able to demonstrate that, you know, eyewitness testimony has been proven both in civil and criminal cases to be very poor evidence.
Mm-hmm. Wes Lanes in Oklahoma County has started his Project Justice, where he offers DNA testing to already incarcerated.
We're working with him on that.
Is that a laudable thing to be doing?
Well, yes. You have to. It is so labor intensive. We have a DNA project that we started 3 years ago. It is amazing the labor involved in going back and trying to sort through the transcript to determine if in fact we got a conclusive result on the testing, would this exclude this person, or is there a lot of other testimony that includes them? In other words, there was hair at the scene of the crime. The state's chemist might say that's the defendant's hair. If we show that it's not the defendant's hair, then does that exonerate that person? Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't.
Let me jump in here and get us to our first break. We're visiting with Jim Bednar, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System. And you're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and Kent Myers.
I'd like to offer my most sincere congratulations to the firm of Crow and Dunleavy, the employees and attorneys. Profound contributions to the state of Oklahoma for this past century, and I wish you well for this coming century. Thank you.
Happy anniversary, Crow Dunleavy, and thank you for 100 years of providing quality legal service to the state of Oklahoma. We wish you much continued success and growth.
St. Gregory's University has been changing the lives of people like me for 125 years. Affordable private Catholic education, balanced with dedication to community and service, makes St. Gregory special. We're extremely proud of our students' outstanding academic achievements and our nationally ranked athletic teams. It's when you help a student build a future of balance, integrity, and service that you change a life forever. St. Gregory's, a community for life.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311. We are C.H. Guernsey & Company. We provide engineering, architecture, and consulting services to clients across the nation and around the world. Our corporate headquarters are located in Oklahoma City, and we have branch offices across the country, including Tulsa. We have provided quality service to clients for nearly 75 years. At Guernsey, we believe in quality work and unconditional client satisfaction. To learn more about C.H. Guernsey & Company, log on to our website at chguernsey.com.
We're back. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers with Jim Bednar, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System. Kent?
Jim, tell us how your agency is funded, and tell us how you're getting along in this time of budget crunch when nobody has enough money. How's that going to affect not only what you do, but the rights of indigent defendants, possibly?
The Indigent Defense System is funded strictly through state appropriations. We're trying to find other sources, but that's basically always going to be
the legislature.
Yes, that's
Whatever
correct.
they decide you get, that's what you get.
That's what we get.
All right.
When I got there, I was asked to kind of come down and take a look and see why the doggone thing wasn't working very well. And when I got down here, there were several problems. One was that we were totally underfunded. Another was the parity between what they were paying indigent defenders and, say, an assistant DA. At the time, it was $13,500 difference on an average, if you whatever experience level. And when we were starting people out at $24,000, they're starting them out at $42,000. I lost a third of my lawyers the first year I was there. So I went back and said, we've got to improve this situation. The legislature and the governors responded well. We didn't reach parity, but we got it where we don't have that kind of turnover anymore. Mm-hmm. We were able to figure out one of the big problems was that nobody had ever taken into account the fact that we have outstanding cases there from prior years that we're still paying on. And so I had to figure out what it would take to service that outstanding debt each year and have that in my budget to pay that. Well, I did that. And the legislature, we figured out if I got $1.3 million for professional services, I could basically handle it for servicing the old debt and getting new experts, new conflict counsel, et cetera, during a given year. So they gave me $1.3 million to fix it. It's actually taken $1.5 million. And since last January, they've taken $2.5 million. So
away from you.
Away from me. So I'm basically back to square one as far as those issues are concerned. For example, the law basically requires that if we have a client that cannot speak English, we get an interpreter. I've always done that. The last 3 years, we've been adequately funded. This last year, we've got clients actually right now that speak only Spanish, or some of them only Vietnamese. I don't have interpreters. You cannot provide effective assistance to counsel without an interpreter in that situation.
Yeah, if the lawyer can't talk to the client and understand what he's saying, it'd be difficult.
And I was facing contempt citations all over the state of Oklahoma beginning over about a 5-month period, because when we have a conflict, for example, we represent 2 defendants in the same case. The DA wants to make one of them a deal to testify against the other. Their interest conflicts. I mean, one of them's interest conflicts with the other's interest. We can't represent both those people. In the past, I've gone out and hired another attorney to represent the second defendant. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do that, so I told the court...
Because you didn't have money.
I didn't have the money.
Right.
There's a constitutional prohibition in Oklahoma, Article 10, Section 23, that says the state or an agency of state cannot exceed its appropriations. Right. It's also a violation of the criminal code under 21-352, and it's also a violation of the purchasing laws under Title 62, primarily 16.41. Nobody's interested in that particularly, but it's illegal to do it. Also, they can sue me personally if I do such a thing, and I wasn't interested in that. So I couldn't provide lawyers for these people. So I moved that the court provide a lawyer, and they said they wouldn't or couldn't do that. So I was ordered to either provide a lawyer or be found in contempt, and I couldn't provide the lawyers. Fortunately, with the help of the House and Senate leadership, Senator Cal Hobson, and Senator Dick Wilkerson, Speaker Adair, and Representative Jerry Askins, we were able to get agreement with the Supreme Court to stand as guarantor till the legislature can get in session, give us some money to do that. But we've got to address that issue. That's Gideon versus Wainwright.
Yeah, well, what's the effect of not providing a lawyer?
Well, I had a drive-by shooter that was going to walk out of jail. Now, I have a family. And I don't want that man on the street if he is, in fact, a drive-by shooter.
Why would he be walking out of jail?
He didn't have a lawyer. You can't prosecute him.
And you couldn't find one? Or
couldn't fund it.
We couldn't fund it.
Couldn't fund one.
The lawyers have a tendency not to work for free. I don't know what it is, but being a lawyer, I can say that. But they have to be paid. Lynch versus State requires that we pay them a reasonable fee, and so we try to do that. But, you know, you have serious people who committed serious crimes that were not going to be prosecuted because we didn't have the money to hire an attorney.
Well, bring it up to today. That's pretty well taken care of, I guess, now.
Well, we have a temporary stopgap. This is just temporary, where the court fund, local court fund, will stand as guarantor until we can get the legislature in session. Hopefully the legislature will address the issue.
A couple of minutes left in the show, Jim. I'd like to give you a chance to kind of speak your mind, look at the camera, and tell people whatever it is you think that they need to know about your role and their role in this whole system.
Well, I think that it's important to realize that if you've had a child or a member of your family that's ever been charged with a crime, you know sometimes that either you feel like the person shouldn't be charged, or the charge is inappropriate or too much. There's just a lot of reasons. This isn't just very bad people out there. 90% of the people we represent are violent criminals, and we all agree that these people should be taken off the street. But 90% of them are either got some kind of substance abuse or mental illness, or they're just do stupid things. And Andy Coates made a great statement when he was district attorney. He said that he wanted to prosecute criminals, not make them. And that's what we're trying to do. There are a lot of particularly young kids that get charged with crimes. If we can salvage them at that point without a criminal career or a criminal history, then that's what we want to do. So we all agree there are violent people that need to be incarcerated. There's no doubt about that. There's no argument there, as long as the state can prove it. The point is that so many of these people really aren't being helped, and the society isn't being helped through prosecuting these people. You don't treat abuse, substance abuse, through incarceration. There's a better way to do this, and we're just trying to help our society, the state of Oklahoma, come to terms with the real issues that we face in this area.
Jim Bednar, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Kent and I'll be right back.
Bringing out the best in each student. That is the simple goal and tradition of Heritage Hall. The focus on the individual shapes the educational experience at Heritage Hall. Each student benefits from small classes, able, dedicated teachers, a solid academic curriculum, and exceptional co-curricular programs of athletics, arts, community service, and other activities, parental involvement, personalized counseling, and the development of responsibility, integrity, and love of learning. If you want education taught with pride, then you want Heritage Hall.
I enrich our cultural landscape.
I help define our quality of life.
I am one of 4,000 artists in central Oklahoma who receive
support from Allied Arts, this community's united arts organization.
I am an Allied artist.
All children deserve a life of hope and love. But sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all of the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. Oklahoma Lawyers for Children has over 350 of the best attorneys and volunteers in Oklahoma County who donate their time and services to represent children. For more information, call 405-23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
So, anything else?
Think being a big sister means you have to do hours and hours of arts and crafts projects? Think again.
Okay, let's do it again. Okay. Stop. Okay.
To learn more about becoming a big brother or big sister, call 1-888-412-BIGGS.
We're back on The Verdict. We've been visiting with Jim Bednar, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Indigent Defense System. Another good show, Kent.
Well, it is, and it was, and I think the first one was good as well. The protections guaranteed by the Constitution are really important to understand. We that watch TV some and see the Miranda warning being given to defendants remember the phrase, well, you have a right to have a lawyer.
I know it by heart.
And if you can't afford one, one will be appointed or provided to you. Well, that's what this show has been about. That's what Jim Bednar is. He is the one that is provided to the indigent defendants. And it is a constitutional guarantee. And what has recently come to the fore in Oklahoma has been him being restricted on how much money he can spend because he can't spend more money than he has, that the legislature has given him. He has more defendants than he can provide lawyers for, and therefore he can't provide them. And the courts have only have had at least the thought that they only had one alternative, and that's to turn the defendant loose without regard to what the crime is or the defendant's prior record. Well, that's unacceptable to most people. And Jim has worked very hard to bring about a resolution of that, albeit temporary resolution, but a resolution until the legislature can come back into session and provide him some additional funding, which frankly will have to, if we keep charging as many people as we're charging with the kind of crimes they're being charged with, they are absolutely entitled to those lawyers, and Oklahoma's going to have to find a way to pay for them. And I think the legislative leadership certainly recognizes it and will act responsibly according to it. But we're lucky to have a guy like Jim Bednar as a loyal state employee.
Well, we want to invite you to visit our website, theverdict.tv. Be sure and email us if you have an idea for a show. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next time on The Verdict.